This is the Budget Leathercrafters fork hack. In 2012, when I made my first wallet, which I called a Benjamin, I didn't have any leatherworking tools. Most leatherworkers will tell you that you need fancy tools like stitching chisels, an edge guide, Japanese skiver, dead blow hammer, and that's just not true. When I was starting Leathercraft, I didn't have any of these fancy tools. I used a fork and a nail instead of an edge guide and stitching chisels. Let me show you how. This arm right here goes on the outside of the leather, and this arm right here goes on top of the leather, like this. And that line shows how far from the edge our stitching is gonna be. You can use a fork in exactly the same way. Put this prong on top of the leather and the second prong on the outside of the leather, like this. Depending if you want the stitching close or far, then you can just take a pair of needle nose pliers and you can bend the arm of the fork out for farther and in for closer. You could just manipulate these. Here's the fun part. Since you don't have these, we're gonna use a nail instead to poke our holes. With stitching chisels, you actually punch all the way through the leather and that gives you your finished stitching hole. But with a fork, we're not gonna do that. The fork is just to mark exactly where the holes go. We're not actually ever going to hammer on the fork. Now that you've marked how far your stitching is from the edge of the leather, and you've also individually marked every single hole on the leather piece, now what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your work piece and you're gonna put it on top of a soft work surface. So a punch mat or 2x4 or a piece of plywood, and then you're gonna grab your large nail. The sharp end of the nail is acting as the sharp end of the stitching chisel. And it's pretty tedious, but you're gonna hammer every single hole on your workpiece all the way through. And you're not allowed to be disappointed in the quality of your work if you weren't willing to buy tools. This is just to get your foot in the door and see if you are interested and wanting to pursue leatherwork. Now that your holes are punched, you can saddle stitch or stitch however you like, and you can start completing your project. Don't expect super fine or detailed leatherworking, but if you need something to just get by, I think the fork and the nail trick is a fine tip, and you can get pretty good at it. See? Not bad. Comment down below what your favorite leatherworking tip is. Subscribe if you haven't already. Catch you guys on the next one. Love y'all.